Yo, 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 what's good? Hope all is well. This is your boy Mendoza back at it again with another Plus 48 Productions tutorial. Today we'll be continuing the series, How to Mix Modern Hip Hop, and we are on part 3. Today we will be going over mixing the vocal, the fun stuff. So let's get it. Alright, as we notice here, we had the beat all set up, the mix bus all set up. If you haven't followed me to this point, go ahead and watch the other 2 videos before you watch this one. And we're kind of just gonna see where we left off here. Check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 16.
All right, cool. So the vocals there, but it's just not present enough for me. I feel as if it could use a little bit more oomph, and there's a few frequencies in there that were bothering me. So first things first, usually what I do is I do a little different thing. I start with a gate on most of my rap vocals. I just feel like it helps the enunciation a lot and helps their syllables cut through a little bit because it's like it's playing with them, and I really like this gate because it has an auto gain on it, so it's kind of just like making up the gain that is lost. Check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1,600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a king.
I just feel like it really tightens up the vocal, and I kind of like the effect that it does and causes on it. And to each his own. If you don't like what it does, I mean, it's not necessary. It's just kind of my standard and what I like to do. So next, I hit it with a little bit of saturation, and I rolled off a little bit of the top end, and I mix it in. So let me show you with it.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1,600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a king. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is.
Kind of just warming up the vocal a little bit. So next I went into some subtractive EQ. I went ahead and took out about 1,300 and about 3,900. Those frequencies just seem to really be bothering me. And if you look, I also did a high pass up to about 123 with negative 12 decibels per octave slope. So with and without it.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1,600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a king. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is final. The racial tension so old they go up on a vinyl. Comment sections ain't mono.
I just didn't like those frequencies, and as you could tell, that 3,900 was pretty harsh, and that around 1,300 was pretty boxy. So I took that out. Then usually I'll run through this compressor, but I don't do anything to it. It's just kind of running through for fun. It makes it sound a little better subtly, in my opinion, before and after.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1,600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence.
Cool. So that's kind of smoothing out my vocal, getting it ready to come into some heavier processing. So first thing I did was I put it through the Slate virtual channel, which is like a console emulation. I'm not hitting it too hard, but I do have the drive up to around 6, which I think is just default. Check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the
I just feel as if it adds that depth to that vocal that we're kind of searching for and we're trying to pull out. And then next I hit it with the 1176 with a pretty fast release attack and a pretty slow attack. Well, the slowest attack. Next I hit it with the 1176 from Slate. I had it at the slowest attack, but I kind of pulled it back to be a little bit faster, nothing too drastic. And then I kind of pulled back the release a little bit to be a little bit slower as well. And then I also wanted to give it a little bit of gain because if we listen to it right now in the track, we'll notice that it's kind of sitting far back. Check it out.
budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again.
The beat just seems to overpower it a little bit, but so I kind of brought back the gain with this 1176.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a cane. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is final. The racial tension so old they go up on.
All right, and then I hit it with a little bit of EQ. I rolled off a little bit of top end. About 19 kilohertz, and then I boosted a little bit of 200 and I cut some 600 and added a little bit of 4K. Didn't touch the top end on this one because there's a plugin that I really like that I wanted to use for the top end. So check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania.
Just kind of bringing the vocal to life, bringing out the characteristics in his voice that make him sound like how he sounds. So this 200 really bumps up that beefiness in his voice that I really like it on this EQ. Watch, check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking.
See how it sounds super thin? And then watch when I bring this in, it just, boom, beefs it up.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedent.
Now you do have to be careful in that area because you don't want to do too much or be too drastic with it. You have to just find, and it has to be the right voice to do it, because if you just start throwing 200 or 300 on all the vocals, like, you could definitely start making them muddy. It just works for his vocal, and I really liked it. All right, so next I wanted to kind of just level everything out. Oh, let me show you this real quick. On the compressor, I also didn't compress it 100%, only 77%. So on some compressors they have mix knobs, so you could blend the dry and the wet signal. So when I had it all the way to 100, it was just too much compression, so I backed it off to about 77%, and that was just a taste. Then I hit it with this RVOCs, which kind of just levels everything out. It has like a slower release on it, and it kind of just keeps everything even. Watch, check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a cane. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is final.
All right, cool. So you see that it just kind of levels all the lower parts and kind of brings them up a little bit and helps them articulate a little bit more. If you check it out, there's not going to be much of a change in the gain. Watch.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania.
Definitely kind of sounds like it gets louder, but I compress and then I level match with this knob right here, just to make sure that I'm not just being fooled by loudness. I really wanted it to come out and bring those little articulations in the lower parts of his voice. So it really did that for me, even when it's level matched. So that's why I kept it.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols.
Cool. And then I went ahead and added this. And this is the top end plugin I was talking about. This plugin by Sound Toys, I love the high end on this. On this one, I actually boosted a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the mids, but the high end is my favorite. Check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1,600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a cane.
Just cleaned it up so nicely. And you could push this top end pretty far without creating harshness. Watch, check it out.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence.
I mean, I could have went a lot higher, but I just chose to be around 3. And then notice, I'm always gain saging, always always matching the gain back to where it was. That's why I brought the output knob back down. And then if you notice in his vocal, there's just this honky tone that it just kept bothering me. And with all the compression and all that stuff, it just keeps bringing it back up. So I hit it with this. And if you notice, back at the other plugin where we first started, our Subtractive EQ, around the same area, so this is about 1K. And this is about 2K. So in that area right there is kind of the same area or general area that I pulled out before. And it was just really bothering me. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm right.
Watch how this will smooth out the whole vocal.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence.
Now you just have to find the frequency that's offending your ear and then smooth that out. Like, you wouldn't think that you would pull mid frequencies out of a vocal because that's usually where it lives, but sometimes there's certain frequencies that are unpleasing to your ear, and that in this case, those frequencies right there were the ones that were unpleasing. So I went ahead and just took those out, and it just made the vocals sound normal. Let me show you what it does when it's associated in the beat. I'm gonna play it without it, and then I'm gonna hit it. Kind of just notice how the vocal falls into the beat more when it's disabled or bypassed. You're gonna notice that it's kind of poking out a little bit, and then when I unbypass it, it's gonna fall in.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1,600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers better mark a cane. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is final. The racial tension's so old, they go up on a vinyl. Comment section.
I mean, that's pretty drastic in my opinion. Just that honky tone, that harsh, ugly frequency was just bothering me a lot. So when I took that out, it finally just sat in the beat the way that I wanted it to. Cool, now we can get into some effects. What I really like to use. Vocals, the first plugin is usually a doubler. This is the Waves doubler. And I use the Dave Pensato vocal, and then notice how it's brought down -7.7. I usually just gain that all the way up to 0, and then the direct is just disabled. We don't need the direct signal, we just want to mess with the stereo image. So I'm gonna give you a drastic so you kind of hear what it's doing.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedence.
Just kind of pushing things out to the side, and then I mix it in with the beat.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers wear the mark of Cain. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is final. The racial tension so old, they go up on the vinyl. Comment section.
Just kind of pushes things out to the side, makes the vocal sound a little bit wider. Does some really good stuff. And then I hit it with this room. Now this room isn't really meant to be heard, but for the video's sake, I'm going to show you what it's like. So you can use any room reverb. I really like this Eventide room reverb. Let me pick it up. It's called Eventide Levels Stereo Room. It's beautiful. I really like it, and I use it on rap vocals all the time.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking
So that's what it's doing. And then I do the same thing that I did with the doubler, play it in the beat, and mix it in.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers wear the mark of Cain. Wait, only online though, where the fake news is final. The racial tension so old, they go up on the vinyl. Comment sections ain't mono.
Just kind of allows it to live with the beat a little bit better. Before and after again.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the...
Super dope. And then I hit it with a little bit of slap delay. And it's spread out fairly wide to the left and the right ear. It's more of an effect to make the vocal wider again. Not really meant to be heard, but I'm going to show you what it sounds like being heard.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence.
And then I believe I have this slate repeater on it. And they're both 30-second notes, but one's a full on the left, and then one is a triplet on the right. And then I'm ping-ponging them and spreading them out quite a bit. So it's just really for the stereo image, just to kind of make the vocal sound a little bit wider. Let me show you where I had it set.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love.
And then without it.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence.
Kind of just really beefs up that vocal in a subtle way. Let me show you before and after without any effects.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on Pennsylvania. Winners wear the crown and the losers wear the mark of Cain. Wait, only online though, where the...
Now it really depends on your client and knowing whether or not they like a drier signal, drier sound. For this case, I know that Artificial, they kind of like things a little bit reverby and echoey. So I wanted to keep it dry enough, but I still wanted to have that little bit of feel that they were in a room. So I think that that's what those effects did for me. And real quick, I don't want to keep this video too long. After this pause right here in the beat,
waiting, Lord, is that image or an alien? Then again,
I felt as if I wanted a little bit more impact to come in on that line. So what I did was I made a new track, and then I dragged that down here. So it's just a copy of it, and then I manipulated it. I put this plugin on it because it makes it stereo. the imager. I stereoized it, and then check out what it does. It kind of does the same effect as the doubler a little bit.
Lord, is that image or an alien? Lord, is that image or an alien? Lord, is that image or an alien?
Adds a little bit of texture to it, and then I'm gonna come back to that. I hit it with some.
Lord, is that image or an alien?
Even it out, brighten it up.
Lord, is that image or an alien? Lord, is that image or an alien?
Took out a little bit of those offensive frequencies
Lord, is
again.
that image or an alien? Lord, is that image or an
Hit it with a doubler.
Lord, is that image or an alien?
And a little bit of reverb.
Lord, is that image or an alien?
This right here is where the magic happened. I went ahead and raised it 5 semitones, and then I really drove the heck out of it with distortion, but it made it sound super dope. Check it out.
So racing in the sun like Mr. Sydney 48 and waiting. Lord, is that image or an alien? Then again.
Lord, is that image or an alien? Lord, is that image or an alien?
Yeah, just little tricks to create a feel and make the song come to life a little bit. If you have any questions or concerns, always feel free to hit me up, email me, comment below. And if you learn something and you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe, please like the video. And until next time, guys, we're going to come back with part 4. I'm going to go over my master chain, how I got it to be radio ready. So stay tuned for that. But until then, guys, it's Plus 48 Productions. Vibes with it. Yeah.
Budget out of balance, but it's handle on my deficit. Like we up in DC and I'm writing on the desk again. Legislating love, taking precedent on precedence. Battling the plague where the pistols are the pestilence. 1600 residents, but heaven ain't on pencil.